Now I would like, it's my pleasure to invite our first speaker for the opening keynote. I can say he's an awaited speaker. Everybody is waiting for him. Mr. Asman Sultan, CEO DO. Please applaud.
صباح الخير. Good morning to all of you. Tony, two ways of putting pressure. One, by the very kind introduction. The second is by just asking me to speak in a day where the theme is building a smart future. What a responsibility, building a smart future. Now, in 15 minutes, it's very difficult. In 15 minutes, the best we can is to put some headlines, hoping that these headlines will highlight. And since we are among people from the industry, I thought I would put some accent as well about what we need to do. We believe that building a smart future is only about what we can do in our industry out there to the outside world. And believe it or not, I believe a big part is related to what we do in our own industry. Now, a title that will come as no surprise: the world is moving from physical to digital. What does this mean to us? I think we focused a lot on thinking what kind of digital services we want to build. Now, if we are in any industry, if we are a service provider, SP, our digital, and by the way, I'm not talking only telecom industry. If you are in the retail business today, the same equation would work. If you are in hospitality, if you are in manufacturing, if you are in transportation, aviation, etc. If you are a service provider, your digital transformation, and we'll call it DT, what a surprise, will start first by digitizing the way you are providing services. And as well, in parallel, now in various companies, one happens first. Very often the second part comes first because we think and we focus that we need to start providing digital services. Believe it or not, in any industry, you need to do both in parallel. And that goes, this has to happen over a next generation infrastructure. If we, in our industry, there are all the buzzwords. An IoT infrastructure, the 5G, all these words. And the word around us is IoT, big data, AI, robotics, blockchain, you name them. So let's try to have one reading about what's happening. Because I'm not sure that if I ask everyone or 5 people about some of these understanding or reading of these buzzwords, we will get the same understanding. That's usually the time for change. Now, a very important dimension, and we've been doing this thinking, what will be the factor that will drive this equation and that will ensure that the time factor will really lead to a significant change in a world where the change that we are witnessing around us is not only fast, but is disruptive. And that will be your employees. So if I can highlight, and if I can give you my first takeaway from this talk, is the talent and the employees you have. And I'll say a few words about how to think this talent in today's world. Companies, I'm long enough in this industry to know that at some point the differentiator between companies was the strategy that they adopted. We need to move fast in 3G. We will not move in 3G. We took some strategic decisions. Then came a time where it seems, in the beginning, you know, it's what kind of decision? Should I roll out my network? How fast? No, I need to milk layer by layer. I need to make a bet on the next generation, whatever. These were strategic decisions. Then came a time where these become kind of common knowledge. The differentiator became execution. We are all today in operational excellency. We all have more or less programs in operational excellency. So what could be the real differentiator? What is differentiating today the Amazon, the Google, the Apple of this world? It's the culture. This is the only thing that cannot be replicated. Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast, operational excellence for lunch, and everything else for dinner. So your employees, the culture that you will be building. And that will force us to think differently what we used to call workforce, and to move into what I call a holistic work ecosystem. Workforce is the multiplication of the people you have with the traditional skills. When we used to look, we're talking about marketing, sales, finance, network, etc., etc. It's still valid to move into the work ecosystem. Work ecosystem is the workforce as defined in the upper part of the slide, but multiplied by these next generation skills. And these are transcending our traditional marketing, sales, and functional view of the world. When we need people in UI, UX, we need them in various parts. We need them in IT, we need them in technology, we need them in marketing, etc. When we need people in analytics, etc., etc., etc. Plus, and this is where, as telco, we are not fast enough to move in that journey in building towards the smart future that Tony promised the world that we will have, is the next generation environment. I have the privilege of sitting in a council for education. The question was, how can we, one person asked the question, how can we make sure that we prepare the young people to be ready for a very fast-changing environment? And I dare to say, you know what, I don't think this is the problem. I can see the young people. Being in a fast-changing environment, this is not what bothers them. This is what used to bother maybe the generation before. Actually, how can we prepare people sometime to be adaptable to an environment that doesn't change? Because this is where your young people will not be able to cope. We're talking the flexible hour, digital tools that are available. And by the way, that transformation at the level of our organization structures and models is at the level of our brand. Today, my advice, your brand has to do an internal job as much and before it does for the external world. Why? Your employees, you want them to be engaged, you want them to be passionate. Your employees are comparing your service, the service that we provide, with the way they are using Uber, the way they are using Uber, Careem, Amazon, etc., and ordering things. You can't have them saying, oh, but I work in an industry that doesn't provide that kind of flexibility, that kind of user friendliness, that kind of experience. So that's the internal part. On the external ecosystem, my second headline, from vertical to horizontal. Building the smart food, and I'm going to give in my opinion, the most obvious example in this transformation of the illustration of a smart future. This is the example of the Dubai Smart City, and maybe some of you don't know that we have the privilege of being the strategic partner of the Dubai Smart City ambition with Dubai Smart Office. And I say the transformation was from a city of smart applications to become the smartest and happiest. and put a line under happiest, I'll be back to this part. Years ago, Dubai was already a very smart city. A city of smart applications. You used to have, when you enter Dubai, you enter at the airport, or you enter in a very smart way. When you deal with your municipality, when you deal with your knowledge authority, or when you deal with the road and transportation authority, the utility company, DIWA, etc., etc. It is a smart way, but these existed in verticals, separated verticals by each government department. Based on a connectivity layer, you have smart departments that were offering each of them separately smart applications. The real transformation is taking this vertical graph and turning it horizontally. Because the world is going to move into a world where everything will be sensing, everything will be connected, whether it's an IoT infrastructure, whether it's telecom infrastructure. And then when all this data, and imagine the richness and the power of data that combines coming from telecom. Imagine what information on you from telecom, from the Road and Transportation Authority, from police, from immigration, from banks, from retail, etc., etc. When all this information is aggregated, you put some big data, data science, artificial intelligence. You have a layer of open data that's a governance layer. Who can access, who can alter, of course. This is a fundamental part. And then everything become smart. And that is this entire multi-players, multi-layers, multi-components ecosystem is the real ground to have then everything innovative and innovation everywhere. This representation is the mother of all representations to answer the question of our dear host, Tony, how we will move into a smart future. Because that ecosystem, you can implement it for a smart home, you can implement it for a smart building, a smart community. That is the base of that. Part or full of this ecosystem. In your smart home, some of your devices will be sensors. It can be the window if you're interested in something related to energy. It can be the lights. It can be whatever. It can be cameras, surveillance camera. These information can be brought together. Dashboards can be done. And then from a home to a community to a city in your own company, etc., etc. From vertical to horizontal. That means everything sensing, every sensor will then provide data. Bring this data together, it becomes information. Put some intelligence on it, everything connected, you get information. Put some data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, you transform information to knowledge. And hopefully, that will serve wisdom. That will serve wisdom because your planning will be better, because your time to respond will be better. Imagine in a city where you see some trends because you made some analytics, you put some layers of intelligence into this data pool. Then you can start thinking that area is going to be in 15, 20. So you start building and planning. You know that you will need to start planning because that area, this will require bridges, this will require roads, this will require access, etc. So the use of this is not only for the end user, two users. The end user who will see him or herself doing things in a more efficient way, more cost-effective way, safer way, probably funnier way, cooler way if we listen to our kids, but as well the city itself, the people who are planning for our future and the future of our children. Data, information, knowledge that hopefully will serve wisdom. A main topic, actually it's very clear, we're moving from VIP to VIP. Quiz, somebody can, okay. We had, all of us, a way of segmenting our customers. We have ARPU. The airline industry is how much you travel, hospitality industry, how many nights, etc., etc. This is for us the classification of a very important person. Internally, we have our grades, we have, executives, you have the CEO, the CEO, executives, etc., etc. It's a joke. So we move into this. This is changing from the very important person to the very individualized person. With this amount of data, today actually, and internet player, the Amazon of this world are now targeting their services in a very individualized way. We as a telco industry, we will move towards a point where we will be able to target offers, services on an individual basis with the type of smart future that is ahead of us. From a very important person to a very individualized. Even inside our own companies, we will be able to understand and to create the environment, you remember next generation environment, that will stimulate and unleash in a much better way the potential of our workforce. That is making the entire, you remember when I said it was strategy, and then it became execution, and it's culture as a differentiation. The dividend that we are getting, when we started this industry, the question that I used to have when I was setting 20 years ago, and some of the guys are here, they remember, the question, how many customers we have? Everybody will tell you. It was in Mobinil, we have 1,200,000. The other guy had 800. Oh, you're much better. Then we moved because customers was not anymore the dividend. We moved to data. You remember when it was how much you're getting. Data and the efficiency, your EBITDA. Everybody was jumping around your EBITDA. Today and tomorrow, it's not anymore the customer's dividend. It's not anymore the efficiency dividend. It's the experience dividend. And I can bet you that there will be a time tomorrow where if you are in the corridors and you're a CEO of a company, what's your NPS? This is the question. Oh, you're beating the others. Your NPS is better. This is today the differentiator that exists between the internet players and us. That is a fundamental move in the mindset that we need to have. And some telcos moved already in this mindset of and you know me, I've been always saying, some of you know since 10 years, because we have always been saying us versus the OTT, I've been always saying, why can't we become, it's not a DNA, it's not a birth being an OTT. It's just a business model. Why can't we create? And I always had the idea that at least at regional level, we can create an aggregation of telcos to create OTT platforms. That's something I've been repeating. I apologize for the people who heard this several times. Our world moving from centralized to decentralized. You remember, I knew the time where the big move was from mainframe to desktop. Then desktop didn't anymore, the intelligence was not anymore there. The intelligence is on the cloud. And we are even saying that this intelligence will not be anymore centralized, but will be totally decentralized. And this is blockchain. That is as well going along. All this is creating a fundamental shift. You know, I've been long in this industry to know a time where we were all running. I was part of one of the largest telco groups. And the question was, we run after what technology says possible. Because these companies didn't have any competition. France Telecom didn't have at the time where mobile was not there. Then competition started to open. And by the way, competition started to open with the mobility component. Then the conversation was between what technology says possible and what economy says viable. That was for years. And you all remember when 3G was there, and big question, and these auctions that happened, Germany, France, with obscene amounts of money, and people said that they will never make their money. And we even said that when the WhatsApp of this world and the Google and the Skype they will never get their money. Where is their revenue? Because we were so focused on one revenue model. But guess what? For 3G and 4G, we didn't factor that there would be something small that will just disrupt the entire world. That was social networking. And social networking gave all the viability of that economically we need for 3G and 4G, and we'll do it for 5G. And by the way, you will hear in some of these conferences, you will hear people, usually they're ex-CFOs, CEOs, that will say, I don't see yet the business case for 5G. Yeah, but when 3G was there and 4G, we didn't see. The ability of prediction of this industry is not something that impressed me, and I am a product of this industry in the last 30 years. Now, with AI, with big data, with Mr. Zuckerberg in front of the senatorial committee, another component is there. It's not only a conversation, a dual conversation between what technology says possible and what economy says viable. It is what society says desirable and acceptable. This is a fundamental part of the equation that is coming, and we're better used to this in the business model that we invent. So we moved from human, after the Industrial Revolution, everything was about automated what human being can do. We wanted to automate, so we automated. Then we moved to digital. Excellent. Then from digital, we made digital smart. And now we are told that the next phase will be an intelligent robot. And guess what? If you see some of these on TV, etc., we are very eager to humanize the robots, to make robots starting to have emotions, etc. I want to make an act of faith. I believe, because I believe that we are part of a conversation fundamental. So I want to leave you with some takeaways. I call it the back to the future. From human to automated to digital to smart, we have to be back to put human at the heart of what we do. We're not doing this enough. I'm not saying we're not doing this enough in the offers that we do as a telecom industry, but we are not doing this in the conversations that are happening. And I even said this to the GSMA. I said this to ITU. I'm saying this to, I believe that with this disruption of digital, not only me, I heard it, a minister, an ex-Australian minister said, the institutions that represent the international rules order that were created after the Second World War, WTO, World Bank, IMF, are at the risk of becoming obsolete because of the impact and the amplitude of disruption, of the disruption that digital is creating. So I believe that these conversations need to happen. We need to do it with a lot of humility. We need to move from a culture of having the answer, even in our internal companies. We are seeing the same that is happening, which is, I called, and some of you heard this sentence, moving from the unshared certainties to the shared uncertainties. And that is something where we need, when I started in telecom, we didn't need to talk with anyone. Film, music industry, IT, handset, we didn't need. We knew. We had power of states because regulators were not even there. Now, we are forced to sit with all these stakeholders, but we are sharing uncertainties. Uncertainties in our revenue models, uncertainties in the way, which is good. So we need to move from the culture of the right answer to having the culture of the right question. We need to be sure that we ask the right question. And I would even advise you as parents, develop this in your kids. I come from a generation where we needed to learn by heart the answer. Today, the answer is there on an iPad where kids that are few years old can just go there. Teach them how to have, or teach them the mindset to be sure that they have the right question. And I want to, in this promise of a brave new world that Tony promised the world, this smart future, I want to make an act of faith that digital age has to do two things. One, enabler of positive transformation, and I wanted that to be an opportunity for all countries in the world. We need to be able to avoid the divide that could exist. The Industrial Revolution created the map of the world. Some countries were on that map and others were on the side of the road after the industrial. We will not catch up in this part of the world in terms of manufacturing, etc., because these are decades of building some kind. But let's have the digital age be an opportunity for us to catch up a little bit on that gap that we had. And why I'm saying that? Because it's not necessarily within the institution. What is pushing me to say this is that Generation Digital, our kids, they are already out there, and I have a great hope in them. So, are we going to, some see this future out of fear, others see it out of greed? I believe if we look at it with fear, we will lose. If we look at it with greed, we will lose, and there is a risk for both sides. We shouldn't resist. We should really try to see where the cursor sees the right opportunities. For that, it's simple. There is no recipe. And far from me to say, with all humility, we have to open our eyes. We have to open our minds to accept that things are changing. And it's very difficult, by the way. Within our own company, the resistance to change is huge, and we have to open our hearts as well. The conversation is on. We are all, you are part of this conversation. So that's my claim to you. Please be part of this conversation fully. Thank you for having me, Tony.